The Bahamas has gotten one of the latest tools in the fight against crime. A set of hydraulic shears for firearms destruction has been provided by the United Nations Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean. Clint Watson tells us tonight that the joint effort will strengthen the capacity of the country's security forces to combat firearms trafficking and ultimately contribute to the reduction of armed violence in the Bahamas.
That's the sound of the new hydraulic shears destroying obsolete and confiscated firearms, a new tool in the war against illicit firearms and ammunition. Intelligence suggests it's a thriving industry with Bahamas strategically located between the major producers and consumers of illegal drugs. National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Noddet says for the Bahamas, drug trafficking and the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons have direct impacts on the fabric of our society and security of the nation.
For this year alone to date, some 237 firearms and 4,010 rounds of ammunition have been removed from our streets by the police. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no refuting that gun violence is fueled by criminals using illegal firearms. Currently, most murders, 3/4 of all armed robberies, and more than 2/3 of all non-fatal violent injuries are committed with the use of a firearm.
Dr. Noddet says the government is aware of the trends and know that firearms have been the weapons of choice, and there is a direct correlation between the drug trade, illicit firearms, and violent criminality.
While reducing the trade in illegal weapons is a challenging undertaking, we are satisfied that improved gun registries, the marking and tracing of weapons, the regular destruction of obsolete and confiscated firearms, along with improved interdiction of firearms at our ports, can help. The government of the Bahamas is determined to maximize our resources in thwarting all efforts to smuggle illegal firearms into our country. To counter the proliferation and violence perpetrated with firearms, this government will introduce a national firearms control strategy, which will include intensive surveillance of our waters by the Defense Force, equipped with suitable vessels and aircraft.
UN Representative William Godnick says this tool will complement the work police officers are already doing.
This action, together with the delivery of 40 international standard padlocks for enhancing security of strategic stockpile facilities, will contribute to preventing theft, loss, and diversion of firearms. It will also free up important space to allow for better management of operational weapons used by government forces. We should not see the illicit trafficking in firearms and ammunition as the cause of the challenges we face today, but rather one of its most serious manifestations, and that we must address in order to reduce the burdens on the public health system, judicial system, and our own security sector.
It's no secret the criminal elements have found creative and resilient ways of committing their acts despite the improved technology and the efforts by government to curb crime. And that's why, according to this administration, it's important for them to stay on the cutting edge. They also hope to implement a national intelligence agency, incorporating all law enforcement agencies and their information. Clint Watson, ZNS News.
Police are making headway in the case of that body found in the bushes of Pinewood Gardens last week. Police have identified the victim as 19-year-old Kayvanya Miller of Key West Street and are questioning a young man in connection with her death. Police have also identified the man shot and killed at Key West Street, south of Cordo Avenue on Saturday. He is 19-year-old Huden Lloyd Jr. of Trinidad Avenue, Elizabeth Estates. Police say 3 men approached Lloyd on Saturday before he was shot to death. Also tonight, police are questioning a 27-year-old Nassau Village man in connection with 2 shootings. Police believe the suspect was responsible for 2 shootings which took place yesterday. The first in the East Street Coconut Grove area, where a man and woman were shot at, though only the man received pellet injuries to his arm and leg. The second shooting happened in Nassau Village, where a man was shot and received injuries to his arm and leg. Both victims are in stable condition. A satellite uplink fire here at ZNS today caused an interruption in television service to the Family Islands and some here in New Providence. Management says that the UPS batteries apparently caught fire, causing the problem. ZNS engineers are still working to restore service. The parliamentary channel, Channel 40, is back up and running. However, Family Island residents can't get Channel 13. Engineers estimate that by Wednesday, the signal will be up and running, providing TV service to the Family Islands once again. A cancer patient is the subject of a precedent-setting case before the criminal courts. This after the Court of Appeal overturned his drug sentence in a landmark ruling which exposed weaknesses in the mandatory minimum sentence laws. Fern Carey explains.
46-year-old cancer patient Anthony Ambrister, pictured on crutches, is now a free man. This after Deputy Chief Magistrate Carolita Bethel resentenced him to the 8 months he's already spent in prison for illegal drug possession. The father of 4 was convicted and sentenced to 4 years in jail last November after pleading guilty to possession of 51 packs of cocaine with intent to supply. 4 years is the minimum sentence for the drug charge following amendments to the Dangerous Drugs Act. At the time, Ambrister, who suffers from penile cancer, said he was selling the drugs to raise money to pay for his cancer treatments. He later appealed the sentence, arguing to his attorney Jomo Campbell that the sentence constitutes inhumane or degrading punishment. And in a landmark decision, the Court of Appeal overturned Ambrister's sentence and sent him back to the magistrate court for resentencing, noting that the sentence should fit the crime. The panel also indicated that Ambrister was a person of good character since 1996, and for all intents and purposes, this was his first offense. They also noted that Ambrister was in possession of a small amount of cocaine and also pleaded guilty at the first opportunity, saving the court time and resources. The appellate court also ruled that to impose a sentence of 4 years was, quote, excessive. During today's proceedings, Ambrister indicated that he still owes a local hospital just over $6,000 in medical bills, prompting Deputy Chief Magistrate Carolita Bethel to question if he would be able to receive the treatment he needs if released from prison. But his lawyer pressed for his release, stressing that the 46-year-old has learned his lesson and is contrite. The court agreed and sentenced Ambrister to 8 months he's already spent in prison. We spoke to Ambrister's wife outside court.
I'm so excited because it has been a long battle, but I can say to God be the glory.
And as anticipated, Ambrister's attorney Jomo Campbell says he's already being swamped with similar cases.
There have been a large number of persons who are quite eager to be afforded justice in the same vein as Mr. Ambrister was today.
Meantime, Ambrister still has to be on his best behavior for the next 2 years. Fern Carey, ZNS News.
The lower courts have also resentenced 35-year-old Andrew Davis to 1 year in prison for possession of 6 ounces of marijuana with intent to supply. The father of 2 pleaded guilty to the charge last December and was sentenced to 4 years in prison due to new amendments to the Dangerous Drugs Act. But he appealed the sentence, arguing through his attorney Murillo Ducil that the sentence was not proportionate with the offense. He also argued that Parliament couldn't restrict a magistrate's discretion as part of the judiciary. The court agreed, overturned the sentence, and sent Davis back to the magistrate's court for resentencing, indicating that although Davis served time previously for similar offenses, he was in possession of a small amount of marijuana, gave an explanation for his possession, and pleaded guilty at his first opportunity. During today's proceedings, Deputy Chief Magistrate Carolita Bethel also noted Davis' previous convictions. She then sentenced the 35-year-old to 1 year in prison dating back to December 8th of last year. She also told him she hopes it'll be his last stint in prison. The National Heroes Committee laid a wreath at the graveside of the country's first Prime Minister, the late Sir Lyndon Pindling, this morning. The event was in honor and recognition of national heroes across the country. Carla Palmer tells us tonight that the ceremony was also used to put the government and public on notice of a long-standing observance they still expect to be formalized.
Standing on what many may consider hallowed ground in St. Agnes Cemetery at the graveside of the late Sir Lyndon Pindling, the National Heroes Committee paid homage to a man regarded as a chief among nation builders. Chairman of the National Heroes Committee, Father Sebastian Campbell, says he intends to finish what he started several years ago, and that is recognizing and honoring our nation builders. Reverend Campbell says although the National Heroes legislation was passed in Parliament, it was never brought into force. He's looking for the new Christie-led government to make it happen.
Now, once again, the ball is back into the court of Prime Minister Perry Christie. We have a second chance. Our committee congratulates our new government and urge you to give immediate attention to the grave injustice done by the most recent administration to the cultural advancement of the Bahamian people.
The National Heroes legislation included declaring the October 2nd National Heroes Day holiday, observing October as National History Month, establishing a National Heroes Park, observe Majority Rule Day January 10th as a national holiday, and highlighting our national heroes as part of the education curriculum. As Prime Minister and a proud Bahamian, the Right Honorable Perry Christie says he's committed to raising the level of cultural consciousness across the country.
The Commission recommended to us, we passed the honest legislation. We are going to review that with a view to seeing that that is in fact moved forward quickly.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the Honorable Fred Mitchell, believes he's found the ideal location for a National Heroes Park, while Lady Marguerite Pindling feels the time is long past to remember more concretely our national heroes.
I think that site just over the hill from Fort Charlotte would be a magnificent site for the much talked about National Heroes Park.
We have to remember these people and pay homage to them because they helped to build this country to where we found it.
Carla Palmer, ZNS News.